Good morning, Marie. Just wanted to take a quick couple minutes here. Hold on, I got look at that stray little hair over there hanging out. Shoot a quick update for you and let you know where we're at. So when we washed it yesterday, the paint was actually in much worse shape than what we thought it was. So essentially, once I started washing it with a pressure washer to try to flake some more of that paint off, it just splattered, it cracked. There were a lot of cracks that you couldn't quite see that essentially it just peppered it all across and made it even worse than what it was. That's okay. I kind of had an assumption that that was going to happen, if you will. So, not a big deal. However, that also means that we have to go a step further with the work. So, my original plan was hoping that I could just kind of flatten off some of the edges and then hit it with some quick primer to make sure that the plastic doesn't gas off and cause the vinyl to bubble. But when it split and cracked up and did all that, essentially if we would have done that and didn't get it as flat as possible, it would have looked almost like, if you remember the old school globes where they had the texture to them, where like the raised mountain areas were raised up on the globe. That's essentially what the vinyl would have looked like underneath, and that is not going to look very good. So what we have to do is sand everything down, get it as flat as possible, and then prime it. So we did this piece, and then we started with the hood here. So I'll flip the camera around and show you here. So this is the piece that went directly underneath the main seat. We removed the hinges, so that way those aren't painted. Those are laying in the back trying to eat some of the rust off. And then we applied some primer on the whole thing here. So it makes it feel relatively smooth. I'm still going to hit it with some like 180 grit sandpaper and then prime it one last time. But this here, if you can see, all these little raised indents is essentially that would have just created valleys real bad. So we're going through here, sanding this down, getting some primer put on there, and that way it's going to look as good as possible. I know this was your main concern, so we're making sure that this piece here turns out as good as possible. But I'll go ahead and show you here this piece back here so that way you can see it. When we started washing it, you can see, let me see if I can get, you see all those cracks. Essentially it just spread out and splintered off and got worse and worse and worse. So I'm gonna sand all this stuff down, get it as good as possible, and then lay the vinyl wrap on top. So like I said, if we would have just put it on without trying to get as much of this original paint off, it would have been very, very textured. So I'm looking at Friday, being done with this at some point on Friday for you guys. So either way, we're definitely gonna make sure that we hit that original deadline for you guys to make sure that you can get it down to Florida and enjoy it down there in the sun and show it off to all your neighbors and friends. So that's our update for you today, and I'm hoping by the end of the day today I can start laying some of the vinyl and then hopefully get the rest of it done tomorrow. So